Okay, is everyone able to see my screen okay?
Hello.
Hey there.
Oh, I was making sure I hear you. I couldn't hear anything at first.
Okay, guys, we are going to get started. Some people might hop on a little bit later. But just to introduce myself, my name is Devin Crochet. I am a registered dietitian with Case-Specific Nutrition. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I know it's the middle of the workday, maybe it's your lunchtime. Or actually, I think you guys are on the West Coast, so maybe it's a little bit early for you now that I think about it. I'm here on the East Coast, it's noon here. But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about eating healthily around the holidays. It's something that oftentimes doesn't really cross our mind until we're already on the move and traveling. But me as a registered dietitian, when I'm counseling people about healthy eating in general, I'm always having people think ahead of time and kind of just plan ahead. And that tends to, result in people having a little bit of a healthier holiday while still being able to enjoy themselves. So I'll go ahead and get started. Just to introduce myself a little bit, my name is Devin. Again, I'm a registered dietitian with Case-Specific Nutrition. We are a group private practice of registered dietitians here on the East Coast. We also do telehealth. And so what we really do is focus on behavior change. And, some people are managing chronic illnesses that we can help with. And what we do is called medical nutrition therapy, which is where we really use the power of nutrition to help people either treat illnesses, prevent illnesses, or, just to manage a healthy lifestyle. And so I like to think of myself really as your nutrition navigator. And I want to really help you navigate this busy life, especially around the holidays, achieve whatever your health and wellness goals are, and then really just learn to enjoy the process too. This is one of my favorite little comics for the holidays, because I know this was me just a few weeks ago around Thanksgiving. I am the vegetarian in the picture. It seems like every time I go home for Thanksgiving, there's a new dietary restriction. Someone's allergic to gluten. Someone's just really picky. Maybe someone's on a cleanse. Someone's lactose intolerant. So I just think this is like a really funny way to kind of kick things off, because, with just the way that our food landscape has been changing, you see new dietary restrictions popping up all over the place. But we'll dive into a little bit more of how to really navigate the holidays, whether or not you have these dietary restrictions. And then I want to leave some time for a Q&A as well, any specific nutrition questions you might have, especially pertaining to the holidays. Okay, so these are my 10 tips for a healthy, happy holiday from a registered dietitian. You may be wondering, what even is a registered dietitian? What's the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist? Are they the same? So a registered dietitian like myself goes through, anywhere between 5 and 7 years of training, studying nutrition. I've got a master's degree in nutrition from the University of Pittsburgh. I went through a year-long residency program where I saw patients and clients on all ends of the spectrum, from just trying to eat a healthier diet to people that were in the hospital in critical care being fed through a tube. So I really have spent a lot of time studying this and spent a lot of time studying behavior change. And so I hope that this stuff is going to be helpful to you, but I also hope that maybe you have some questions that I can answer towards the end. Okay, so I'm going to start out talking a little bit about holiday travel, because I know that that is a big part of where struggling to eat and exercise really begins, right? So my first tip is to really plan ahead for your travel. So we make lists of all these other items that we need, but we don't necessarily always think about food and how food has to come into play. And that actually, oops, sorry, wrong slide. It actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because, if we were traveling 100 years ago, we wouldn't have a McDonald's on every corner. We wouldn't have a Chick-fil-A at every airport. Airports didn't even exist back then. So when we, before the onset of all of this fast food in our country now, and just in the world in general, and all of this food availability, we really had to think ahead of time. And what's wonderful about living in today's day and age is that we do have convenient access to food. It's not a matter of, we're not worried about starving to death anymore on a travel trip. We're more having to think about, are we going to have access to healthy foods? Because oftentimes those foods that are the most convenient are not always the healthiest choices, or maybe it is a little bit more challenging to make healthy choices. So how do we plan ahead for travel? Well, it kind of depends. You got to think through what your travel plans are. Are you going to be driving for 10 hours? Are you going to be, hopping from flight to flight? Are you going to be spending the whole day in flight? So kind of catering it to that, experience. So let's say that you're flying. That means you're probably waking up really early, potentially. You may be getting to the airport. You're going to spend hours getting through security, waiting for your flight. Maybe there's a layover. It's going to be maybe a long day of travel for you. So what you can actually do is you can pack a meal in a disposable container that you can get through security. Or just be mindful, obviously, to make sure that there's no liquid in it, but you are absolutely able. In fact, I oftentimes, when I'm traveling home for the holidays or just in general, I will bring a disposable container with some chicken, rice, and broccoli just to, get me through. And I can just throw out the container when I get through. And that way I'm able to have a really healthy meal after I get to the airport while I'm sitting in, the gate getting ready for my flight. Maybe, that's not necessarily realistic for you that you're going to pack a whole meal, but you can definitely pack some snacks. Again, you are totally allowed to bring food onto, through security. The only restrictions that I am aware of other than the liquids is that you're not able to bring produce if it is an international flight. So keeping that in mind. But other than that, totally okay to pack your food in advance. Again, you're packing extra t-shirts and your toiletries and stuff. You're making this list, you're making sure you're not forgetting anything, but make sure you're not forgetting nutrition either. And so let's talk about road trips, right? Road trips are oftentimes a big part of holiday travel. And so there is no reason why you can't just pack a cooler with either some prepped meals, some fresh produce, some, healthy options, pack some snacks for the road that are going to be a little bit healthier, so you're not going to be reliant on that gas station food. All the same, we can definitely talk about later. If you, for some reason, forget, for some reason, some last minute thing happens where you're not able to pack and prep, there are going to be tips for that as well, so stay tuned. Tip number 2 is to prioritize snacks with fiber and protein. This is going to be crucial for traveling as well, and just for the holidays in general. When we're having these holiday heavy foods, the pumpkin pies, I'm trying to think what else, like the mashed potatoes, all of that stuff tends to be, a little bit higher in calories, a little bit higher in like that saturated fat and added sugar. Some of that stuff that we want to limit in general, and it tends to be a little bit lower in fiber and protein. These are key nutrients that are often lacking in both travel and just in the holidays in general. So even if you aren't traveling for the holidays, you may be starting to lack some of that fiber and protein. And oftentimes, if you're experiencing just a little bit of a GI distress, your stomach bowel regimen is kind of like off, a little bit TMI, but that oftentimes comes down to not having enough fiber and protein. And so thank you to Joey for adding that TSA food listing. That's a really great resource, right? So there are totally lots of different foods that you can bring through the airport security. But anyway, so back to the snacks of fiber and protein. I find that stocking up on some of these snacks, especially for travel around the holidays, that is rich in fiber and protein can help regulate that GI system that can sometimes be thrown off by these holiday heavy foods. And it's also making sure that you're getting adequate nutrition. The role that fiber plays in our nutrition is really bulking up our diet, helping us feel fuller a little bit sooner. It definitely helps keep digestion moving, and it also supports healthy gut bacteria. All of things that are really, really important and oftentimes sort of get neglected unintentionally around the holidays and with traveling. And then also protein, of course. Filling up on protein, making sure that we have adequate protein at each meal makes it less likely that we're going to overconsume some of that stuff, the saturated fat, the added sugar that we don't necessarily need. And so some of these tips that I have for snacking with the fiber and protein is getting at least 5 grams of fiber and at least 10 grams of protein per serving. And this is, I'm talking about a snack here, not necessarily a meal. So of course your protein needs can be very individualized. As far as fiber, most Americans don't get enough fiber, and you actually need between 25 to 35 grams per day, depending on whether you're a man or a woman. So some good snack ideas that you could, even bring with you on the road. Some dried chickpeas and beans. There's a brand called Bada Bean Bada Boom that has these like roasted broad beans that have all kind of great flavors like sriracha, honey mustard, kind of like if you're a salty kind of snacks person, you like potato chips, this would be a good alternative. And this is going to be, again, higher in that fiber and protein, those two key nutrients that are oftentimes lacking. You could also do something like trail mix. It's going to have a little bit of fiber, going to have a little bit of protein there. Definitely great for the road. There's a reason they call it trail mix, right? You could even just keep it simple and have some whole grain crackers with peanut butter. You could even get those like little snack packs. Those are great for the road, great for the airport as well. You could do some hummus with some sliced veggies or pretzels. I know a lot of times those airport convenience stores will have those little snack packs that have like the pretzels and hummus. I think it's like Sabra is the brand. Or you could just keep it simple and have some air popped popcorn. People don't often think about popcorn as a healthy snack, but in truth, it is a whole grain. So as long as you're not having like, the microwave butter, super high in butter popcorn, it's definitely going to be a healthy snack that's rich in fiber, maybe not necessarily rich in protein, but it is a great source of whole grains that will fill you up, give you some fiber and keep you going throughout those holidays. Tip number 3 is to look at menus ahead of time. So, if your holiday travel plans include eating out, or maybe you weren't able to prep meals like you had planned for either the road or the airport, you can definitely still eat healthily. It's just a matter of looking at some restaurant menus ahead of time. So, let's say that we are at the airport and you're not necessarily thinking that you can find something healthily. Well, most airports have something like a Chick-fil-A where you can get like grilled chicken nuggets, or maybe it's McDonald's, you could get I always say, like, you could opt for the happy meal, the kids menu, and it might seem a little bit silly ordering it, but it's just in an effort to keep your portion sizes small. So you're still able to have those foods that you enjoy without really over consuming. And then, you're not feeling lethargic on that flight, you're feeling energized. So just keeping in mind that you can look at the menus ahead of time when you're not maybe super hungry and like not willing to make the easiest choice or the most healthy choice. So keeping an eye on those menus ahead of time. And of course, if it's going to be at a convenience store, like again, maybe it's an airport convenience store, or maybe it's a gas station, thinking about those things that maybe are like refrigerated, like your Greek yogurts, hard boiled eggs, a string cheese, definitely getting in some fruits if you can find them there, even just something as simple as a banana. So thinking about, maybe it's not the easiest choice, maybe there aren't a ton of healthy choices, but what choices can I make to make it a little bit healthier? Tip number 4, and this kind of leads into holidays specifically, is there tends to be a lot of disruption to our daily routine. So maybe you are typically a very healthy eater, maybe you exercise very regularly, but your routine is thrown off around the holidays, maybe because you're traveling, or maybe just because you've got a lot of social engagements and you're busier. Maybe just things are off. Maybe your work schedule's off, you've got some time off, and that kind of just disrupts your schedule. So it can be oftentimes difficult to keep everything the same. And you don't want to, right? You want a little bit of variety, a little bit of spontaneity around this time of year, and you want to enjoy that. So I always encourage my clients to really focus on keeping one thing consistent. Again, maybe it's something as simple as your exercise routine. Maybe you're a regular exerciser, and that tends to go by the wayside around the holidays. Maybe that is the one thing that you try and keep the same. Or maybe the exercise routine, you're going to be doing a lot of travel, it's not super realistic, so maybe it's as simple as trying to get those 8 hours of sleep a night, or trying to get those 8 cups of water in. Now, this won't necessarily the holidays in general don't have to completely derail your health and wellness goals, especially if you're kind of focusing in on that one habit to really keep you consistent. And it's really a mindset game, right? You're keeping yourself in that health focused mindset over the holiday season, because oftentimes what I tend to see with my clients is that they're trying to grunt through the holidays, ignore all the cookies, just have their blinders on and really just try to stay consistent. And then they tend to feel really restricted, and then they tend to go off the rails. Or option B, a lot of my clients will just say, oh, you know what, Devin, the holidays are crazy. I'll talk to you in January. Like, I'm just going to enjoy the holidays as much as I can, and then I'm going to get into a diet in January. And what I tend to see is that, when people when they have this January 1st date in mind, they tend to kind of go a little bit overboard around the holidays because it's that scarcity mindset. And I'll be getting into this a little bit more later. But, if you're keeping, one aspect of your health and wellness goals consistent throughout this holiday season, you're a lot more likely to stay on track and not feel like you need to, go on some kind of crash diet on January 1st. Tip number 5 is make the in-between meals count. So I love this little statistic. There are about 87 meals between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of people think of the holidays as a complete wash in terms of their health and wellness goals. Like, it is absolutely impossible to live a healthy lifestyle around the holidays because there's so much temptation out there. There's maybe cookies at the office, maybe neighbors bringing over a fruit cake. Like, there's just all this temptation around. Might as well just scratch it and start over January 1st. Well, in reality, there's these 87 meals between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so maybe there are, 4 or 5 special events involving food on your social calendar. You've got your office holiday party, like you can see in this picture here. Maybe you've got your family gatherings. Maybe you've got get-togethers with friends, holiday related. And it's okay, so maybe there's 4 or 5 of those. Well, that still leaves over 80 opportunities for some healthy, balanced meals in between there. So I always like to say, like, there is no reason why all of those meals in between those special holiday parties cannot be healthy. I want you to go to these social events and absolutely enjoy yourself. Don't be worrying about calories and everything then, but trying to balance those social gatherings out with just your healthy, normal routine. I always say boring is underrated. We need to make boring great again. Tip number 6 is don't save up your calories and don't skip out on meals. So I see this on Thanksgiving a lot, and that tends to be why we overdo it on actual Thanksgiving meal. But around the holidays and while we're traveling, we tend to have less meals. Like maybe we're used to having 3 or 4 meals a day. Maybe we're only having like 1 or 2 meals a day around the holidays or around travel. They tend to be more spread apart and they tend to be much larger in portion sizes. And what I tend to see is that the body will try to overcompensate. Your body knows that it's not getting the regular nourishment that it's used to getting. And so you will kind of feel the need to overdo it on these meals. And that's a completely normal feeling, but it's something that is not impossible to avoid either. So I always encourage people not to save up calories if you've got, a holiday party that night by skipping breakfast or lunch, or, I wouldn't say like save up room, for big Thanksgiving meal or big Christmas dinner. You still need to have multiple meals throughout the day. And when you do have these normal balanced meals in between these holiday meals, you are less likely to overdo it at these holiday meals, and you're likely to feel better just digestive wise, energy wise, and of course, you're keeping yourself on track with those health and wellness goals. Okay, so tip number 7, this is a little bit more of a mindset thing. So it's focused on the novelty, not so much the portion size. So what is really making these holiday meals special? Of course, we're sharing them with our loved ones. We're seeing people that you're not used to seeing, but also some of these foods are foods that you really only get to have around the holidays, right? Maybe for me, it's my grandfather's pecan pies, absolutely fantastic, or my grandmother's sweet potatoes. These are special items that I've focused on or I look forward to all year round. And I try to remind myself that it's not just because it's a special meal or these are special foods that we're sharing with special people, doesn't mean it has to be a gigantic meal, right? We think of somehow Thanksgiving went from it's special because we're, giving thanks, spending time with loved ones, and having these special food, like holiday foods, to it has to be some huge binge. That's not the reality. Again, I would say don't save up your calories. Make sure you're getting some breakfast and lunch in those days of those holidays, even if you've got a big holiday dinner coming up. And, make sure that you're focusing on the novelty aspect of it. It's not so much the portion size. This is a special meal meant to be shared with special people. Again, doesn't mean it has to be a gigantic meal. Tip number 8 is to find your highlight reel. So what are those items that you're thinking about all year round? So if someone asks you, for whatever reason, it's July, and someone asks you, what's your favorite thing to have on Christmas Day? Like what's a tradition that your family has? So for me, my mom makes like a panettone French toast, and like that's my favorite thing that I look forward to. And I'm never going to skip out on that, even if I'm trying to focus on some health and wellness goals. I'm still not going to miss out on that. My grandfather's pecan pie, the sweet potato casserole. But this is going to be a little bit of a hot take here. I think that you can have stuff like mashed potatoes or a dinner roll any time of year, or maybe it's something different for you. But oftentimes there are these little like added things like, the cookies, the dinner roll, these extra foods that we're just kind of having because they're there, even though they don't really have any kind of sentimental value to us. So thinking about your highlight reel, the stuff that you are really excited about, and focus on those things, and maybe you can leave the rest. The random cookies that are in your office that someone brought in, from the grocery store or something. Well, maybe that stuff is not that important to you. So you can really prioritize and say like, you know what, I don't need these cookies at the office right now because I know that my mom makes the best peanut butter blossoms and I really want to focus on those. And so I don't necessarily need those office cookies. So, focusing on your highlight reel, what is really important to you that you're looking forward to all year round, enjoying those things, and maybe leaving the rest of the stuff that's not as important. Tip number 9, this is one of my favorite ones. So I don't know if you guys, like when I was in school, we had the food pyramid. They decided to get rid of that. And now we have this thing called the MyPlate that you can see right here on the right of my screen. And so I think this is a really good strategy, especially for leftovers. So oftentimes, let's say we're the one that's hosting this year. We're buying a ton of food. We're hosting a ton of people. We've got a ton of leftovers. I tend to see, again, 2 camps in my client base. Some of my clients are like, we need to get these leftovers out of the house immediately so I'm not tempted by them anymore. Like, get them out of here, get them out of my house, giving them away, sending people home with the Tupperware, right? That's the one camp. The other camp is, well, I guess we need to just eat them and get rid of them so that we can get back to healthy eating again. And I think that there is a third better option, and that's to create this MyPlate. This MyPlate, again, this is like what the kids get shown. Maybe if you have kids, you've seen this before. But the basic gist of it is that, half of your plate is some kind of combination of produce, fruits and vegetables, or maybe it's just fruits or just vegetables, but half the plate is some combination of produce. Quarter of that plate is the grains, and then a quarter of the plate is protein. So this way you're getting a balance of, fruits and vegetables, proteins, carbs, healthy fats. So by doing this, you're able to, incorporate your leftovers in a way that's balanced, right? What's not, the reason that we feel super lethargic on Sunday of Thanksgiving is not because we had one Thanksgiving dinner. It's because we had Thanksgiving over and over again throughout the weekend, and we're feeling super lethargic and just like overstuffed because of that. When in reality, when your body breaks down something like mashed potatoes, green beans, and turkey versus something like chicken, rice, and broccoli, your body doesn't really know the difference, right? At the end of the day, it breaks it down as carbs, proteins, and fats. And, as long as we're getting those things in the right ratios, it's still a healthy meal. And so you can, again, recreate this MyPlate at home with your leftovers. So maybe it's, in the greens section, maybe it's a dinner roll, but maybe it's, mom's cornbread or mac and cheese or sweet potatoes or mashed potatoes. That's going in that one corner of the grains. That bottom corner is your protein. So maybe that's the Christmas ham. Maybe that is, the turkey, whatever it may be. And then, half that plate, you can make it a salad. You could have like a salad as half your plate, or you could load up on some green beans and broccoli, some Brussels sprouts, some carrots, whatever it is. But enjoying those leftovers in a way that's balanced is going to, again, help with digestion, help with those energy levels, and help with those health and wellness goals, whatever they might be. And then this is another one of my favorites. It's stand your ground with food pushers. So I invited grandma to the party today because, she means well when she's offering you these Christmas cookies. Maybe she's even telling you that she made them just for you. But you know what your body needs, when you've had enough. And so politely declining food that's offered to you that you're not really wanting, or is not really just best for your health and wellness goals at that time, it's not rude. It's really just doing what's best for you. And I always say, unless someone is cheering your food for you, what you eat is really none of their business, especially if you're someone who is health conscious, trying to make healthy changes around the holidays. You're often going to have people making comments to you like, oh, is that all you're eating? Oh, what do you want to diet? Oh, relax, it's the holidays. And while you absolutely should relax and enjoy some of those favorite holiday foods that you love, you're also oftentimes encouraged by society to overdo it. And so really just, learning how to stand your ground with people that are trying to, kind of push food on you that you're not interested in, is really going to be key. Your body will thank you for that. Okay, so just to recap some of the tips that I gave you is, plan ahead for that travel. So think ahead, are you going to be traveling for the whole day? Well, you're going to have a few meals there. So how is it going to work? Are you going to maybe get lunch at the airport, bring breakfast with you, and then go out to dinner? If so, can you take a look at the menu ahead of time? Just thinking ahead, if it's a road trip, maybe packing a cooler with some stuff, maybe getting some snacks that are, again, higher in that fiber and protein, which is our second tip. Prioritize snacks with fiber and protein. Shoot for 5 grams of fiber and 10 grams of protein per serving. Some good options would be stuff like trail mix, those dried chickpeas and beans, even stuff like beef jerky is going to be a little bit like, shelf stable or also higher in protein. Looking at menus ahead of time. Again, I kind of referenced this before a little bit, but planning ahead for travel is going to be really important. If you're going out to eat, thinking about those menus and what could make the best choice. A lot of times, if you're making the choice for yourself in advance before you're sitting down, hungry, your eyes being bigger than your stomach at that meal, you're going to do a lot better. Joey just mentioned a really good tip, and he said that you should stay hydrated at the airport. Sometimes we think we're hungry, but we're actually thirsty, and that is absolutely true. And one of my little tricks for that is to bring an empty water bottle because of course we can't really have fluids on the flight. I'm a big fan of the reusable water bottle. And so I'll bring my water bottle empty through the airport and then actually just fill it up at the water fountain when I'm there. Next would be to keep one thing consistent, whether that's your sleep, whether that's your hydration, whether that's your exercise, any one of those things, just choose one thing that continue to prioritize throughout this holiday season, because again, our routines are kind of thrown off, but having one thing that is consistent will kind of keep us in that right mindset going through the holidays. Realize that it's not all a wash, right? You can really enjoy the holidays while still making time for your health and wellness. Making those in-between meals count. That's kind of what I was just talking about, right? With those in-between meals, again, there's the 87 meals between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and there are maybe 4 or 5 social gatherings. That still leaves plenty of room for healthy, balanced meals in between all of those. So trying to, keep those meals boring because you've got a lot of fun stuff to look forward to, but kind of just making it an all-out free-for-all all through the holidays is going to negatively impact your energy levels, your digestion, and it's not going to get you closer to those health and wellness goals that you're prioritizing, right? That's why you're here, right? And next is don't skip meals. Oftentimes, we want to save up our calories or whatever, or even just, save up our room in our stomach to have this huge meal. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And you're actually going to feel a lot better if you do nourish yourself throughout the day. You're not going to sit down at that meal ready to, completely stuff yourself. Next is focus on the novelty aspect, not so much the portion size. So these meals are special. You're having special foods, you're with special people, and that's what's special about it, not so much the portion size. So just because it's a special meal doesn't mean it has to be gigantic. And in fact, you're going to feel better if you're, not skipping meals. And then when you sit down to that holiday dinner, you're ready to enjoy a normal size meal that is still these foods that you enjoy. Next is that highlight reel, right? So remember that, there are foods that you're looking forward to all year round, and you should absolutely go in and enjoy those in a normal portion size. And then think about the stuff that maybe doesn't have that much sentimental value to you. So again, I always go back to the cookies in the office, right? Like you're not thinking about that all year round. They're really just eating them because you're tired and they're there, and maybe your blood sugar levels are a little bit low. So you're just grabbing that. And afterwards you're like, why did I even eat that? I don't want that. So again, thinking about that highlight reel. Next is to recreate the MYPLATE. So again, that's half of your plate being some kind of combination of fruits or vegetables, having a quarter of your plate, those grains, ideally whole grains if you can, but even so, maybe it's the cornbread, maybe it's the sweet potatoes, the mashed potatoes, those grains can kind of like, that carbohydrate part of the meal can fit into that corner. And then that last quarter is the protein. So that's going to be, your ham, your turkey. From my house, we've got a lot of vegetarians, so it's a tofurkey. But whatever it is, still enjoying those holiday foods, but in the right ratios to kind of support good digestion, energy levels, and, weight goals. And then lastly is stand your ground, right? You know what's best for your body. You are in charge of what goes into your mouth and no one else is. And so realizing that, it's not rude to put yourself first and realize like, I don't have to say yes to everything. I really just want to say yes to the things that I really enjoy. And of course, most importantly, enjoy this time spent with loved ones. I think if this past year has taught us anything, or the last 2 years really, it's that, we can't take these special times of year for granted. We can't take our loved ones for granted. We're not guaranteed to have every, year for the rest of eternity with these loved ones. So really just, focusing on maybe less so on the food, definitely still enjoying the food. But what's really most important is that you're able to spend time together. And if you need some nutrition support throughout the holidays or in the new year, I always recommend that you work with a dietitian. Of course, this office locations portion is not necessarily super pertinent to you because you are on the West Coast mostly, but we do telehealth. We also bill for insurance, which is fairly unique for a private practice of registered dietitians. We accept most major insurances. So you can always contact us by emailing scheduling@casespecificnutrition.com. We also have a phone number. You can definitely look us up on the internet. We are here. And again, we do telehealth all year round. We also are super active on social media. So I have to plug this because not only am I a dietitian for the company, but I also do all of our like nutrition content. So I'm really big on sharing these tips, especially around the holidays, because a lot of people aren't able to meet with a dietitian regularly around the holidays just due to travel. So, staying up to date, following nutrition accounts that can give you some good tips just to kind of support you through this time. So of course, we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all case specific nutrition, just to give you some extra support throughout this holidays. And just lastly, I like to remind my clients and of course all of you that eating is a form of self-respect. Eating well and exercising well, treating your body well, it's truly, I think of it as an opportunity rather than an obligation. We do not have to eat well, we don't have to exercise well, but the payoff is insurmountable, right? It's, treating your body with that form of self-respect. And that goes kind of back into like the whole standing your ground around people that are pushing food on you, really honoring your body and honoring what it needs at that point, not just, in immediate like time, but also in like the long term, is really just a form of self-respect. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't go too long, but I wanted to definitely leave some time for some Q&A. Of course, my name is Devin. I am a registered dietitian. You can definitely contact me by email if you're interested, or if you have any follow-up questions. Also, again, really active on social media. I run all the social media for our company. I do nutrition TikToks and Reels if that's anything that you guys ever follow. So you can always connect with me on there. I'm super open to, DMs and emails and all of that good stuff. So I hope these tips were helpful to you. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you feel like you can go into the holidays and be able to enjoy yourself without feeling like it's just a complete wash for your health and wellness goals, and you're going to feel lethargic and having to start a diet on January 1st, right? There's definitely plenty of time to make room for health and wellness and just healthy living in general around the holidays, and still be able to really enjoy yourself. All right, I got a good question from Joey. He said, is there any difference in the nutrition we gain from alcohol, wine, beer? What are the differences? So Joey, do you mind if I clarify? Are you talking about the differences between the different alcohols, or between alcohol, alcohol, wine, beer, and food?
The differences between the different alcohols, like, is wine more advantageous nutritionally to drink during the holidays? And, I noticed, I can only speak for myself, obviously, but, during the holidays and family gatherings, we tend to drink much more than we would ordinarily. And so that's a lot of, what I have always learned to be empty calories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for clarifying too. I always say, just right off the bat, when it comes to alcohol and nutrition, what is going to be most important is the amount that you're drinking, right? So regardless of whether it's beer, wine, or liquor, what is most important for your nutrition is making sure that you're keeping those portion sizes and those servings in check. I know it's really easy to overdo it around the holidays, but generally speaking, the recommendation is 1 drink per day for women, 2 drinks per day for men. And unfortunately, that doesn't mean that you can save them all up and have 7 to 14 on one night. Unfortunately, I wish it worked that way, but it doesn't. But as far as differentiating between the different types of alcohol, at the end of the day, alcohol is alcohol. It's not a great source of nutrition. Your body, it's 7 calories per gram as opposed to 4 calories per gram for carbs and protein, and 9 calories per gram for fat. So it's kind of nutritionally, or calorie speaking, it's kind of in between those carbs, fats, and proteins. But generally speaking, your body doesn't really convert it well into energy. And also it, obviously just doesn't make us feel the best. So I guess I don't like the term empty calories, but if we're going to talk about empty calories, it's probably the most accurate you can get. Again, your body is absorbing those calories, but not really able to use them effectively for energy. So generally speaking, I like to say, think about that 1 to 2 drink per day rule around the holidays, even. And when it comes to what type of alcohol, I like red wine because it's got those phytochemicals, this resveratrol, that tends to be a powerful antioxidant. So red wine is definitely not a bad option as long as you're keeping those portions in check. And then if we're talking about, beer, this may be a little bit controversial, but I actually prefer something that's maybe a little bit heavier, like an IPA, one of those heavier beers, because you can easily drink maybe 5 or 6 or 8 Miller Lights probably, but you're less likely to drink that many of a higher calorie beer. So I'd actually rather you have 1 or 2 of the higher percentage beers than having a ton of like that light beer that's just gonna really just load on the calories. And then when it comes to alcohol, no real difference in between the tequila, vodka, rum from a nutrition standpoint. However, I will say you want to focus on what are you mixing in there? Are you drinking the alcohol straight? If so, fine. But if you're adding a mixer in there, try to make it as low calorie as possible. One of my go-tos is a vodka soda with a splash of pineapple juice or a splash of grapefruit juice or cranberry juice. So just adding, having that mixed drink as low calorie as possible and using some natural sugars to sweeten it just a little bit. If you like a vodka soda, I think that's obviously a great one too. Diet sodas, I know diet sodas get a bad rap, but I'm totally for a rum and diet Coke, something like that. So someone said there's 0 beer now. And yes, I've heard about the 0 beer. I don't think there's any alcohol in it though, which is interesting. So, but if that's your thing too, I think that's totally fine. Does that answer your question, Joey? I know it was kind of a lengthy answer.
Yeah, for sure it does. I had one other question that kind of ties into the Diet Coke as well, but you talk about, not you personally, but people talk about 0 calorie this and diet that and whatever, and there's so many different agents that they're using, right? There's aspartame, there's whatever, and now the new one seems to be alcohol sugars that they're using in the chains. And I'm pretty old, so back when I was doing it, they used to say that the diet things, actually your body reacted, it triggered your insulin response very similarly to sugar. Can you just talk a couple seconds about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. There's a lot of mistrust around artificial sweeteners in general, whether they be, just 0 calorie stuff or the lower calorie sugar alcohols. In general, all the research that's been done on them so far, what they've deduced is that they are what's called generally recognized as safe. So perfectly safe for consumption within reasonable portion sizes. So if you're, drinking a gallon of Diet Coke a day, that's a different story. It's a little bit unreasonable. But in general, having sugar alcohols here and there are totally fine. As far as your insulin response, which for those of you who don't know, insulin is a hormone that's secreted by your pancreas, and that is in response to sugar being in your blood. And that helps with the absorption of sugar into your system to be converted for energy. And so when it comes to diet soda, there's like a little bit of a myth, or diet like products in general, there's a little bit of a myth that when you have these foods that have artificial sweeteners like diet soda, that it triggers your insulin response the same way it would for regular sugar. And that's actually not true at all. So even if you are consuming something like, a diet soda, even though it tastes sweet on your tongue, your body doesn't actually recognize that as sugar. So it's not stimulating your insulin in the same way. And even if it was, you're not actually taking in sugar to be able to absorb. Now, the one caution I would give you with sugar alcohols, diet sodas in general, sugar-free candies, sugar-free, just items in general, is that the sugar alcohols and artificial sweeteners that they use tend to be much higher in sweetness than typical sugar. And what that actually does is it can cause some GI distress. What happens is, these highly concentrated sweet molecules are in your digestive tract, and it's causing water, because it's an osmotic gradient, to pull into your digestive tract. So people will oftentimes get some pretty bad diarrhea. If you're curious, if you don't believe me, you could look up on Amazon, the reviews for sugar-free gummy bears. They can cause some serious GI distress. So that is my one word of caution to the artificial sweeteners. But in general, I think they're a really great option, especially for, if you're trying to have some kind of alcoholic drink and you're not so much a fan of just like the regular soda water. I think diet soda is a great option. Of course. Any other questions? The alcohol question is really great. And this is like not super related, but this is a question I got on a previous holiday talk, which is that like, you know, what if I have a bunch of dietary restrictions and, you know, I can't really enjoy the holidays the way other people do. So I even have clients who aren't able to eat food at all. They are actually fed through a tube because of, you know, medical issues. Are not able to absorb food like the normal way that we all usually do. And so the holidays can be especially challenging for them because food is such an integral part of our culture and how we socialize and how we engage. And so for individuals like that, I always encourage them to kind of maybe plan an activity around the holidays that isn't related to food. So maybe you as a family are all playing a game together, and that kind of takes the emphasis off the food. And I think that can be actually helpful for all of us, right? Because the holidays are about the holidays. It's about spending time with our loved ones. And of course, food is a part of that, but it's not the whole part of it. So having other activities around the holidays that are not so much related to food, maybe it's like a card game. Like I'll tell you, today we're having our holiday party at my office. So we're doing like a charades kind of game. Like having activities like less related to food will make that less of a focus, hopefully make it less of a temptation as well. Any other questions? Definitely save that TSA food listing if you're traveling around the holidays. I think it is super useful to know what you can bring and what you can't bring. I always try to bring a full meal with me whenever I travel. And of course, if any questions come up later too, again, you can always email me. I'm always available there. You can send me a message on Instagram if you guys are into that. I know it is super early for you guys on the West Coast, so you might not be fully awake yet, but if anything does pop into your brain, I am always here. All right, well, if that is it, I will wrap up today. Thank you guys so much again for joining. I hope that you got some stuff out of this. I hope that you feel mentally prepared to go into the holidays, ready to enjoy yourself, but also to keep your health and wellness goals in mind. And remember that, you know, it doesn't have to just everything start on January 1st. There's definitely plenty of room for some healthy eating throughout this whole holiday season. And also, you know, an opportunity to enjoy ourselves and spend time with loved ones as well.
Devin, I want to thank you so much. One of the things I want to add is everybody out there, Devin and I will be cooking together on Thursday at noon your time, 3 o'clock Eastern time, and then, you know, all the times in between. We have some really good recipes that we're going to go over, and we're going to prepare a really nice salad that Devin put together. And we have some common recipes that are going to have some little tweaks that Devin has done to them to make them a little bit more healthy. So I hope that you will all come back and listen to us on Thursday. I can't wait to cook with you, Devin.
I'm so excited. Yeah, we'll be together in person. Super exciting. And we'll be in your beautiful kitchen I've heard so much about. So I hope you guys can join us then. We'll definitely be sending out the recipes afterwards so you guys can even try them at home. Still plenty of time to get all that holiday food shopping and time to make these recipes. So thank you again, Joey, for hosting me. And thank you guys for joining today too. This was super fun.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. I will make this video available through ASH as soon as Zoom is done percolating it. So again, thank you, Devin. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days.
Thank you guys so much. I'll see you soon. Thanks, Joey.